कभी करती हैं मुलाकातें, कभी करती हैं मुलाकातें, कभी यादों में बरसातें, किताबें करती हैं बातें, किताबें करती हैं बातें। मन की गहरी झील में कूद जाती हैं कभी, सोच के दरिया के संग संग बहती जाती हैं कभी। चाहे शाम हो या हो रातें, किताबें करती हैं बातें।
Today we have two very interesting writers whose books have been bestsellers the moment they have released. Today here Kota Nilima and Ashwin Sanghi. I welcome you to the show. Nilima, you have also been a journalist, which gives you tremendous access as well as possibility of research, especially in the context of your book Shoes of the Dead, which is a lot about, I guess, your journalistic training. If you could say how this book began.
This is my third book on the issue of farmer suicides. It has, as you know, it's been a very important problem of this country, and sadly it hasn't got as much attention and focus as it ought to have. So that's something which has always sort of bothered me to find out what are the causes behind this very tragic, events. And also not just report like journalists do, which is to base your stories on facts and figures, but also get into the narrative of the story, the circumstances, what leads these people to actually take this ultimate step. Why don't they want to live in a country like ours? I mean, what kind of country would they want? Is this not a country which cares for them? What should the government do, or what should we do? What should any other Indian do to save these lives? So these are some of the questions which I wanted to research, and I wanted to write in the form of a narrative, not just a reportage, but as a story. So that journey began with my first book, River Stones, and that was in 2007. That talked about the policy shortfalls. It basically covered it basically marked the distance between Delhi and the villages. That was something which I could research and write, because I was thinking of writing fiction and not just my reportage. So the second book was about private money lending, which is considered one of the causes for farmer suicides. So I analyzed, is it true? How, to the extent, is it true that it's the only or the main cause? Are all money lenders bad, as we typecast them in it? Right. Or is it true that they are bad? And so that was also a very interesting journey. That was in 2009, the second book. And in this book, Shoes of the Dead, I'm talking about the third angle of the problem, which is the politics of the crisis. Right. So this story is about a young politician who belongs to Delhi but represents a rural constituency with this problem. So I'm looking at that kind of perspective, where you have grown up with all kinds of privileges, and you are being groomed for positions of power, and then you have to deal with something which to a person like that would look like a small little problem, which is farmers killing themselves. How does that perspective fit into the larger issue? So in that sense, I am exploring from the other side also.
Talking about narratives, you do the impossible task of 2 time periods, and sometimes 3 actually, in your book, and you weave it together. How do you manage to do that so deftly?
I think I'm an ancient soul, trapped in a contemporary age.
Right.
But I've always been fascinated by the ancient,
Right.
and I genuinely believe that history repeats itself. It's not just a proverb; it does repeat itself.
Right.
And not only does history repeat itself, but we seem to repeat our mistakes, and even after repeating our mistakes, we don't learn from our mistakes, and we make exactly the same set of mistakes again, over and over again. You can almost see those patterns.
Right.
And that is what interests me, that can one look 2,000 years ago or 3,000 years ago and see a recurrence of that pattern as what we see in our modern day and age. So, for example, with Chanakya's chant, the thought actually came while sitting and watching a news program and looking at government formation after the election. And when I saw that 3 weeks down the line we didn't have a cabinet, I thought to myself, was politics always so messy? Wouldn't politics have been easier in an ancient time? Because we always have this tendency to say times were better. Oh, the good old days. You know, trust me, the good old days weren't so good.
Right.
And so we today have a political system where we use democracy and elections and defections and parliamentary vote in order to bring down governments and to convey a point of view politically. The only difference was that in the ancient day, you did it with chariots and horses and chindrils. But the props are the same, the characters are pretty much the same, the motivations are pretty much the same. So that is what really interests me.
Chanakya's chant, why do you call it Chanakya's chant? Is that the whole idea of the resonance that you're talking about?
If you think about realpolitik and you are asked what is a name that you associate with realpolitik, it is probably Chanakya.
Right.
And the thought that was there in my mind was that today, if I was looking at the Arthashastra, and if I was a consultant at a top-notch firm like a McKinsey, I would say that the Arthashastra is probably a wonderful prescription for good economic management. So I genuinely believe that we are living in a time when we need some of those ancient prescriptions again. When you read the Arthashastra, you realize that Chanakya goes on to prescribe as to what should be the slope of a road so that the water drainage is correct. How deep should a treasury be so that it cannot be looted? At what frequency should soldiers be paid so that they remain incentivized and motivated?
Right.
So it is like a perfect administration manual, and I wish we had more governance happening in our country. So probably a time has come when we need to start thinking that if we could have this sort of governance in 320 odd BC, then why can't we have it in the 21st century?
It's interesting that both of you are actually referring to contemporary politics and the way in which the democracy has sort of turned out. And is this, like, you know, for both of you, of course, this is your primary concern, would you say then today?
Yes, as a fiction writer, it gives me a great opportunity to try out some of the solutions and see whether they can work, which is what I do in this book also. So yes, it does help. Yeah.
Ashwin, is that your prime?
Well, no. For me, honestly speaking, it's telling a story.
Right.
If it happens to be around politics, that's great.
Right.
Because one of my loves is politics. But two of my books have had no political implications.
Right.
My first book, The Rosabal Line, and my last book, The Krishna Key, had nothing to do with politics. For me, it's much more about, I think what fascinates me is the ancient, whether it is history or whether it's mythology. And in fact, honestly speaking, what really fascinates me is the overlap between history and mythology. Because in our country, we've had this wonderful storytelling tradition, which was there way before we invented writing.
Right.
So it was much more of a verbal tradition. And we have never really been able to establish a very, very clear line between the Puran and Itihas. So there is almost a wonderful grey zone where historical characters become almost mythical, and mythical characters could possibly be historical.
Right.
And that fascinates me, that overlap. If I can relate that back to contemporary times, then so be it. I'm happy to do that. But that's not my sole objective or purpose.
Right.
Ultimately, I just simply want to spin a good yarn.
Yeah, it's about spinning a good yarn. Crime fiction, you're also writing and
Yes.
have written crime fiction, which is again probably the most difficult sort of genre to handle, you know, in terms of the plotting. So how do you go around that?
Well, for me, crime fiction is in fact my work in progress right now.
Okay.
Because I'm currently penning a novel along with James Patterson, which will be a crime thriller set in Mumbai.
Okay.
But that is something very far removed from the sort of books that I've written till now.
Okay.
All three of my previous books were thrillers in the technical sense, but they drew a lot on the past. This is the first time where I'm writing something which is purely contemporary. has no connection with the past whatsoever.
Okay.
But I must tell you, one of the reasons why I think that I'm enjoying that process is because I'm one of those people who always loves to work with a very detailed plan in front of me when I sit down to write.
Okay.
I have a huge wall on which I normally sit down and I plot out my entire story, and that remains in front of me for the 18 months when I'm writing. So pretty much every twist and turn in the story is known to me beforehand, and that is the critical element really in writing crime fiction, because you can't simply sit down and expect to be inspired and write. It doesn't work that way. So there's a lot of planning, detailing, plotting which needs to go into that process.
From a journalist to being a writer, again, the difference is the narrative has to be plotted. Is that something that you would particularly enjoy as a fiction writer?
Going from 500 words, which we used to write regularly, to writing 70,000 words was a kind of a transition which took time. But I enjoyed doing it because this was something which I had been wanting to do for a very long time. I wanted to tell the stories between the lines. You know, that those 500 words used to always restrict me, and you know, there were stories which I used to take back home which were much larger, much deeper, and those needed to be told. So I had to write the longer, you know, the version. But as far as the plotting is concerned, I've discovered one thing with my writing, which over a period of trying various doing various experiments, is that I pretty much go by what the characters want to do in a book, and I don't change a draft too many times. It takes me about 1 year to write. I take my time while I'm doing it, and it also has to do with the fact that most of the characters in the book are real. In fact, I call it fiction, but as you were saying, the itihas is part of it. You know, I am talking about contemporary history. So when I'm talking about farmers, these are actually farmers in Vidarbha.
Right.
They, when I talk about widows, they are these people. The story, therefore, is pretty much already there, and I don't try to manipulate the story just to, you know, make it interesting. What I do, though, is put it in a larger picture and a larger storyline, which is my own making, which, as I said, is based on the various issues which I want to address. And also, for instance, when I'm talking about the politician in Delhi, again, he is a collection of different characteristics of various politicians who are at the moment in Delhi, and they are in politics. So again, I don't want to meddle too much with their characteristics because they are interesting people in their own way. I just want to be honest enough to their real life, you know, characteristics, so that I can present it like that to the readers in a story which is interesting, which takes them along, and which has an ending of its own, a natural and a evolutionary kind of ending. So in that sense, perhaps my writing is far more intuitive.
You're right.
And far more dependent on the people I interview, the people on whom I base the characters.
Ashwin, did you expect your books to be so successful, because they're all in the bestseller list?
Honestly speaking, when I wrote my first book, which was the Rosabal line, I couldn't find someone to publish it for 2 years.
Okay.
So I'd actually given up all hope that anyone would even publish it. And in fact, originally I had to self-publish the book before it was eventually picked up by a mainstream publisher. And I was simply just so grateful to see my name in print that I couldn't care two hoots as to whether it would sell 10 copies or 10,000. But I was pleasantly surprised that that particular novel just took off. And after that, honestly speaking, the numbers that eventually ended up happening across my 3 titles was something that amazed me. Not in my wildest dreams could I have imagined that those numbers would be actually achievable. But I think those numbers don't just point to Ashwin Sanghi's books being popular. I think they point to a much broader phenomenon, as it were, where we are seeing a younger audience emerging, a younger demographic, and we are seeing for the first time a change in their reading habits. So suddenly you've got this much wider audience which at one point of time was not reading, which is now reading. And I think the effect of that is being felt across genres, but some of them have felt it more. So for example, I think that there has been an effort on the part of younger generation to be able to reconnect with their roots.
Right.
We grew up in families where we always had a dada or a dadi or a nani or a nana who would always tell us stories from either the Ramayana or the Mahabharata or, you know, convey to us so-called ancient wisdom, as it were, bottled in a nice little, neat little story. Those options are gradually dying off. We have nuclear families. Kids very often do not have exposure to a lot of that.
Right.
And so they need new ways of being able to consume that. And I think that is where probably some of my writing fits in.
Right.
That so for example, when I talk about a concept like levitation, I don't simply say that, well, you know, because he was a god, he could levitate and he could fly. I try and give a rational explanation as to why levitation could possibly occur.
Right.
So it becomes a lot more easily digestible for the younger generation.
The same thing about your books, Nilima, because you write about such uncomfortable realities, but they are books which are very successful. So does that tell us something about the new fiction, English fiction readership, I would ask?
It clearly points to one important thing, which is that there is a feeling that the complete truth, the entire truth, is not being told by either the media or whoever tells the news, you know. So there is this huge section of readers, especially young readers, who want to know the rest of the truth. And I mean, this first begins with the awareness, the realization that they are not getting the entire story. They want to know the rest of the story, and they are looking for books which tell the rest of the story, whether it is about history and mythology, or whether it is about, you know, the contemporary situation. They want to know what India exactly is, and I think that's rooted in something far more, you know, serious and far more important. That is because I think the young people today want to really find out their idea of India. They want to find out what exactly their future should be like in a country of their choice. So before they decide what kind of country they want to live in, they first want to know what kind of country do they have. So I think that kind of eagerness shows in the kind of success of uncomfortable books like mine.
Yeah. Thank you, Nilima, for being here. It was lovely talking to you. Thank you, Ashwin, for being here. It was lovely talking to you.
To be here.
And looking forward to both your new books, and hopefully we'll quickly have a look at them.
Thank you.
Thanks.
আমি প্রথমে সুনীল গঙ্গোপাধ্যায়ের একটি কবিতা পড়ছি বাংলায়, তারপরে ইংরেজি অনুবাদ শোনাবো। সুনীলের সবচেয়ে বিখ্যাত সিরিজ নীরা সিরিজের কবিতা। নীরা নারীরই আরেক নাম, এবং এই কবিতাগুলি পড়ে একটা সময় 70 এবং 80 দশকে প্রায় সমস্ত বাঙালি ছেলেই প্রেম করত এই কবিতাগুলো নিজের বলে চালিয়ে। কবিতাটার নাম হচ্ছে হঠাৎ নীরার জন্য। বাস স্টপে দেখা হলো 3 মিনিট, অথচ তোমায় কাল স্বপ্নে বহুক্ষণ দেখেছি ছুরির মতো বিঁধে থাকতে সিন্ধু পাড়ে, দিকচিহ্নহীন 52 তীর্থের মতো এক শরীর, হাওয়ার ভেতরে তোমাকে দেখেছি কাল স্বপ্নে নীরা, ঔষধি স্বপ্নের নীল দুঃসময়। দক্ষিণ সমুদ্র দ্বারে গিয়েছিলে কবে, কার সঙ্গে, তুমি আজই কি ফিরেছ? স্বপ্নের সমুদ্রে সে কি ভয়ঙ্কর ঢেউহীন শব্দহীন, যেন 3 দিন পরেই আত্মঘাতী হবে। হারানো আংটির মতো দূরে তোমার দিগন্ত, 2 উরু ডুবে গেছে নীল জলে, তোমাকে হঠাৎ মনে হলো কোনো জুয়ারির সঙ্গিনীর মতো, অথচ একলা ছিলে ঘোরতর স্বপ্নের ভিতরে তুমি একা। 1 বছর ঘুমোবো না, স্বপ্ন দেখে কপালের ঘাম ভরে মুছে নিতে বড় মূর্খের মতো মনে হয়, বরং বিস্মৃতি ভালো। পোশাকের মধ্যে ঢেকে রাখা নগ্ন শরীরের মতো লজ্জাহীন। আমি 1 বছর ঘুমোবো না, 1 বছর স্বপ্নহীন জেগে 52 তীর্থের মতো তোমারও শরীর ভ্রমণে পুণ্যবান হব। বাসের জানলার পাশে তোমার সহাস্য মুখ, আর যাই, বাড়িতে আসবেন। রৌদ্রের চিৎকারে সব শব্দ ডুবে গেল। একটু দাঁড়াও, কিংবা চলো লাইব্রেরির মাঠে। বুকের ভিতরে কেউ এই কথা বলছিল। আমি মনে পড়া চোখে সহসা হাতঘড়ি দেখে লাফিয়ে উঠেছি রাস্তা, বাস, ট্রাম, রিক্সা, লোকজন ডিগবাজির মতো পার হয়ে যেন ওরাংওটাং 4 হাত পায়ে ছুটে পৌঁছে গেছি অফিসের লিফটের দরজায়। বাস স্টপে 3 মিনিট, অথচ তোমার কাল স্বপ্নে বহুক্ষণ। ইন দ্য ইংলিশ ভার্সন, 3 minutes at the bus stop, yet for hours in my dream last night I saw you embedded like a knife across the ocean, compassless, one body like the 52 holy places. In the wind I saw you last night in my dream, Neera, in the dire blue times of dreams that ripen once and die. When did you visit the southern sea door? With whom? Have you only just returned? How terrible, how silent the ocean was in the dream, without a wave, as though it would kill itself 3 days later. Your horizon in the distance like a lost ring, your knees immersed in the blue water. Suddenly you seemed to be a gambler's mall, and yet you were alone, alone in the intense dream. I shan't sleep for a year. Wiping the sweat off the brow at dawn after a dream seems so very foolish. I prefer oblivion, as free of shame as the naked body hidden in clothes. I shan't sleep for a year. For a year I'll be awake, dreamless, and roam your body like the 52 holy places to earn my piety. Your smiling face in the bus window. I have to go. Come home sometime. The shriek of the sunlight drowns all sounds. Stay a little longer, or let's go to the library garden. Someone in my heart said these things. Glancing at my watch with remembering eyes, I jump up, leapfrogging over the roads, buses, trams, carts, and people. Loping on all 4 limbs like an orangutan, I reach the door to the office lift. 3 minutes at the bus stop, yet for hours in my dream last night. I'm now going to read to you a poem by Rabindranath Tagore. I'm not going to read the original, I'll just read you the translation. The original is called Hotat Dekha, an unexpected meeting. We met suddenly on a train. I hadn't thought it possible. I'd seen her over and over in a red sari, crimson like a dahlia. Today she was in black silk. It covered her head in a cowl, cupped her face, lustrous and fair like a lily. She seemed to have enveloped herself in a deep, dark distance, the distance to the edge of the mustard fields, to the blue-grey of the shal wood. My senses came to a sudden stop. I knew her once. Now she wore a stranger's solemnity. Throwing aside her newspaper, she greeted me suddenly. Social mores could now be followed. We began to converse. How are you? How is everyone? Etc. She continued to gaze out of the window as though she had overcome the contagion of intimacy. She answered in monosyllables. Some she didn't even respond to. Conveyed with an impatient wave, why talk of all this? Silence is so much better. I was on another bench with her companions. After a while she beckoned with her finger. Such boldness, I thought. I sat down on the same bench. Under the sound of the train, she said softly, please don't mind. Where's the time to waste time? I have to get off at the next station. You're going further. We'll never meet again. So I want your answer to the question that hasn't been answered all this time. You'll tell the truth, won't you? I will, I said. Still gazing at the sky outside, she asked, are those days of ours that are gone, gone forever? Is nothing left? I was silent for a while. Then I said, all the stars of the night remain under the glare of the day. I felt doubtful. Had I made it all up? Never mind, go sit over there now. Everyone got off at the next station. I journeyed alone.
इस समय मैं आपके सामने अपने एक उपन्यास तिरोहित में से एक टुकड़ा हिंदी में पढ़ना चाहती हूँ। एकदम अकेला खड़ा हूँ इस खिड़की पर जिस पर चच्चो खड़ी होती थी, अकेली, मेरे साथ नहीं। खिड़की के फ्रेम में जड़ी सुंदर तस्वीर सी, लेबर्नम हाउस से आते जाते लोगों के साथ खुद को निहारती सी। एकदम बारीक नोक वाली पेंसिल से बनी उसकी लंबी आँखें और पतली नाक, भरे भरे जामुनी होंठ, गाढ़ा जामुनी रंग। उफ़, ललना कहती, काटें ज़रा, इस चच्चो के तन में खून नहीं, जामुन का शीरा है। खिड़की में खड़ी चच्चो अलसाए हाथ उठाती, धीरे से बालों का रिबन खोल देती कि बादल की तरह घुंघराली घटा छा जाए। सुनहरी बॉर्डर की कभी प्याजी, कभी धानी, कभी आसमानी साड़ी पहने, पल्ला बाएं कंधे के नीचे जापानी हथ पंखे सा खुलता, सीने पर कसे मैगी स्लीव के ब्लाउज़ पर अब सरका तब सरका पड़ा। अपनी भरी भरी गोल बाँह वो खिड़की पर टिका देती, इस तरह। उफ़, सुंदरी की, ललना का कहना था, भूतनी की। साइकिल के पंप से हवा भराती है, सर्र सर्र कसी भरी, एकदम में टाइट ये बाँह। चच्चों का सुख से उदास अंगड़ाई लेना, बाहों को सिर के ऊपर बांधना, पल्लू का आधे तन से फिसल जाना, बगलों में पसीने के गोल भीग उठते। सुना है, ये बातें सुनी हैं, मोहल्ले वालों से भी, खुद चच्चों से, ललना से भी, अपने किसी बचपन में। सुनाने वालों ने ऐसे सुनाया है कि आज जैसे देख पा रहा हूँ कि जैसे मैं था तब, अपने पहले भी, वहाँ। देखता हुआ चच्चों को जो चुप यहाँ खड़ी होती, जैसे हड्डियों से नहीं एक लय के सहारे बनी। वो अदृश्य लय जो उसकी काया को लहर की बल खाती कशिश देती। जब उसने आगे चलकर सारा तन ढकना शुरू कर दिया तो भी वो लहर कहीं नहीं छिपी, उसके मोटे गफ कपड़ों को पारदर्शी बना गई। तब भी थी वो लहर जब वो कुर्सी में बैठे बैठे ही हमेशा के लिए सो गई। खमदार लहर जो मरने पे भी नहीं बिगड़ी। गर्दन कुर्सी के हत्थे से नीचे गिरी, हाथ अलग झूला, आंखें हाथों की तरफ घूमी और ऊपर सरक गईं। होंठ हल्के से खुले, बस नाम पुकारने ही वाले हो जो। पूरे ठवन में वही एक लय, जैसे नृत्य की मुद्रा यहाँ भी। कोई हैरानी तो ना होती अगर वो फिर से उठकर यहाँ खिड़की पर खड़ी हो जाती, जैसे तब से मैं खड़ा हूँ। सधी तस्वीर बनी देखती क्या हलचल है उस तरफ। फाटक से कोई 3 व्हीलर अंदर आ रहा है, कंकड़ी पर कंकड़ीली आवाज़ करता, बाहर की गर्द पहियों से उड़ाता। मैं ज़रा आड़ में हो लेता हूँ, जो चच्चो हो जाती, अजनबी नज़रों और धूल के पाउडर से बचने। आंखें बंद करता हूँ, जैसे खुद न देखूँ तो यकीनन कोई और भी नहीं देखेगा। अगले ही पल आंखें खोल देता हूँ, ज़रा सा फिर सिर आगे। न जाने कौन है स्कूटर में, हल्की सी उत्सुकता उसकी अजनबियत पर। ये उत्सुकता मेरी नहीं, चच्चों की है। कब तक याद रखूँगा मुझे आड़ में रहना है, सामने ना आ जाऊँगा। खिड़की के एक कोने से सूरज की तरह उगते, जामुनी सूरज। खोई खोई निगाहें भूल जाएंगी कि बाहर से कोई घूर रहा है, या बेफिक्र हो जाएंगी घुंघराले बालों के झटके के साथ देखे, या आईना बना लेंगी उन घूरती आँखों को अपनी खूबसूरती का या अपनी चाहत का। धीरे धीरे मैं अपने तन को ढीला करता जा रहा हूँ, जगह जगह के पेंच खोलता, गांठें सुलझाता। सारी नसें, सारे स्नायु सुकून से फैल रहे हैं और इसी खिड़की पर, अंदर और बाहर के अदृश्य एक मिलन बिंदु पर मैं झूल जाता हूँ, लतर की तरह, चच्चों की तरह। यहाँ मेरे हाथ होते, यहाँ मेरे घुंघराले बाल, खिड़की मेरा फ्रेम, मैं उसमें सुंदर तस्वीर, तस्वीर सी बीती, तस्वीर सा दुख। मैं बाहर देखती हूँ और सिगरेट फूंकता हूँ।